What's going on, everybody? My name is Andrew, and today I'm here with Costas, and we want to answer questions that landlords have about managing rental properties, specifically when it comes to the LTB. So today we're looking at one email sent by Justin in Ontario, and he's asking, how effective do we find the N8 form when trying to either evict or correct a tenant's behavior? Now, for those of you that don't know, an N8 form is something that you will serve a tenant when they are consistently late on rent payments, typically. So, if you ever have a tenant that likes to pay cash or is doing something, they have maybe a job that doesn't have those regular payment schedules, they might sometimes try to arrange to pay with you based off of their schedule. And that might be okay to do initially, but what a lot of landlords find is that people start to take advantage of that and then they don't know how to correct it, and the N8 form is that. So Costas, because I know that you specialize in a lot of this, what is some of your experiences serving an N8 form?
Well, when you're looking at the N8 form and how it's best utilized, you got to look at the situation, right? So if your tenant is continually paying rent late, that's something that we don't want, because it really puts a damper on finances, and you want to make sure that you have someone that's consistent and they're paying the rent on time. That's what we want, right? When you're looking at a situation like this, the N8 is actually quite effective in most cases, because you're telling your tenant, hey, listen, there's a problem here and we need to rectify that.
It's a formality.
It's a formality, yeah. And you just want to make sure that you're doing things properly, right? And you're giving them an opportunity to correct this behavior, because you don't want to tarnish the relationship, and that's very important. You want to make sure as a landlord that you do have very good relations with your tenants.
What do you think is better to do? Do you think, in terms of setting that precedence, a lot of people don't like to serve legal forms immediately because they find that it's a little heavy, that maybe when you serve those forms that you're almost taking away that personhood, that relationship. And it's like, you maybe on the other side, somebody might say, why didn't you talk to me first instead of serving me this form? So I think we can obviously agree that a conversation is the best way to start first, but how long do you wait? Like, how long do you think you would need to wait before you would serve that form? How many times does your tenant have to be late?
Honestly, Andrew, I believe the best practices are to, I would send it personally me the second time. I think that would be most effective, because if you're having a conversation with your tenant and it's not resonating with them and you're not getting anywhere with them, right? That's kind of you're putting yourself in an unpredictable place, right? So after the second time, you have to proceed with some form of action. And that's usually when the NA comes into play. And then after that, follow up on them and say, I've got, sent you a notice. What do you think of it? I've tried talking to you. Now I obviously have to escalate the situation.
So if the question that he's asking is, if you serve the N8, how effective do you think it will be? Because like when you file an N8 and then you take it to the LTB, are you going to get an eviction?
In short, Andrew, the answer is no. Usually when you get that first tribunal date and you're appearing before an adjudicator, the adjudicator usually wants to give the tenant kind of like a slap in the wrist, if you will, so that they can correct their behavior. But it's most likely the second time where the adjudicator is going to look at the issue a lot closer and say, okay, well, you know what? We've tried to give them time to improve. They're not improving. This is clearly a consistent issue. It's more habitual than circumstantial. So that's when they're going to be more proactive, and at that point consider even possible eviction.
Now, what does a time frame like this look at? Like, I know you mentioned that you've had some experience with this. If somebody filing one in the second N8 and then subsequently going to the LTB, what do you feel is a time frame that the landlord can expect this to take? Actually, a good way to answer this is, what do you think pre-pandemic and what do you think now?
Okay, well, pre-pandemic, you were looking at roughly a timeline between, honestly, anywhere from 2 to 6 months. It can be a very lengthy process if it's not dealt with right away and it's not being dealt with in a timely manner. Now, pandemic days, as we're living in now, is quite different based on the caseload, right? Yeah. So, in short, Andrew, it could take quite some time.
In lieu of actually having to go through a lot of this, because I know people are generally, a lot of landlords are wary to go through the Landlord and Tenant Board because they find that it's generally in favor of the tenants, and they want to find alternative approaches to it, because sometimes people want to do things properly. It's a formality that people want to uphold. However, it's such a lengthy and can be a very costly process. Absolutely. So what do you recommend in order to expedite this process?
You know what, most landlords don't want to deal with the situation because, once again, like I said, they want to maintain that landlord-tenant relationship. And that can get quite difficult because, listen, at the end of the day, you're a landlord, right? You're not a legal professional. You don't want to go down that road because it is strenuous. Quite frankly, we don't know what the tenant is going through. We don't know the backstory, and they may not want to share that with you. They could have fallen on hard times. So finances could be an issue, right?
Yeah.
And if you can make it easier on them, presenting them a resolution to their issue or whatever it is that they're going through, then it's a win-win for everyone.
Yeah, actually, and that's the whole thing, is that a lot of landlords, I have noticed, will try to push an issue and be aggressive about it, and it gets emotional. It's like, you know, people take it as an emotional thing. Like if I'm a landlord and I have my own bills to pay and mine are regular on the 1st of every month or the 5th, right? And then your bills are regular and you're not paying them, you're putting me between a rock and a hard place. And everybody has their side of the story and the way they will feel about that. So I can see how that will expedite the time frame. But you know, don't people feel upset about, oh, this guy isn't paying me rent and now I'm gonna give him money to also leave?
It's a little crazy to think about, you know, that you're gonna overextend yourself. You're already in a deficit and they're already in arrears, and now you're topping them off with, you know, an opportunity to give them more money. And that doesn't make sense. But at the end of the day, like I said, some people, you know, they fall on hard times, and we definitely wanna move along. We don't wanna be stuck here, right? And we also wanna make it easier on them if they are finding themselves in a difficult financial situation. If you can create a win-win opportunity for both parties, and then you can part ways amicably, which is, in my, you know, I think that's the best way to do it, then you should move along with that option.
All right, guys, we hope that this does help you a little bit with your understanding of the N8 form and when to use it, how to use it, the time frame that we're going to be looking at. So if you have any other questions, please make sure to drop us a comment in the comments below. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you on the next one.